I want to switch over to CaseWare Working Papers first of all here, and I'm currently in a sync child copy of a file that's hosted in my CaseWare Cloud instance. Just to show you, here is that file in my CaseWare Cloud, and it was uploaded or accessed earlier today as we work our way through. Back to the working paper file. The file is finished, and I'd like to lock it down to prevent further changes to the file. Now, lockdown is found under the engagement ribbon. So I want to go to engagement and choose lockdown. Now at this point, Working Papers does a check to see if there are any other outstanding synchronized copies. And here we see that indeed there is one that Gary Adams has, a synchronized copy, and looking at the gray icon, we can determine that this is an offline copy. The file is in an offline state. Now, to continue to lock down, I am given the option down at the bottom here to abandon outstanding synchronized copies. This would allow me to continue, but a warning appears indicating potential loss of data if you choose to abandon an offline synchronized copy. Any unsynchronized changes will be permanently lost. Now, I don't really want to lose any potential unsynchronized changes, so I'm going to uncheck that. A better option would be to contact the other person or people with offline copies and have them get into an online state to properly delete their synchronized copies, thus ensuring no missed content. Now, let's assume for a moment that I have access to Gary, and I give Gary a call and say, hey Gary, you've got an offline copy of a file that I'm attempting to lock down. I need you to get into that copy. So we switch over to Gary's computer here, and he's in the exact same file. Well, he's in his own synchronized copy of that file, and he's in an offline state at the moment. I'm going to put Gary into an online state, and to do that I select the offline in the bottom right and choose Work Offline to remove the check mark and put the file into an online state. Now, when I do this and switch back to my computer, what will happen is it puts Gary online, and it recognizes that Gary is in an online state, so it allows me to move forward to the lockdown. Now, let's have a quick look at the lockdown, keeping in mind that we do have a recording previously on this. So first of all, at the top we have lockdown now, which will lock the file down immediately, but we also have options to lock down after the document completion date, in which we select the jurisdiction, and we have a number of jurisdictions to choose from, and within those jurisdictions there may be different types of lockdown completion dates. For the US we have public, non-public, and private. New York, which in selecting those will toggle between either a 45-day rule or a 60-day rule for lockdown based on the report release date. Now, if the report release date was a prior date, we can also back this up if necessary. Now, in order to continue, I want to lock this down immediately so that we can see what happens during the lockdown process. So I'm going to choose lockdown now and click Next. Now we go through our lockdown considerations, and we have up to 4 lockdown considerations available to us. The 2 that you see here, Run Cleanup, which allows me to retain history and retain milestones if necessary, and the ability to delete selected files found in the client directory that are not on the document manager. So I have some items there that can be removed because those items aren't going to be locked down anyways. The other 2 options include performing a year-end close, which we are going to be getting to, but I performed one earlier today, so it's not showing up on the screen at the moment. And I'm going to go ahead and click Next at this point. Now the lockdown context is asking me what period date sequence is going to be used for the snapshots of the documents for lockdown purposes. Now this file happens to have quarterly and yearly balances, but I want to use the yearly balances. If I was in a consolidated file, it would also ask me which entity level that I wanted to use for those snapshots or milestones. I'm going to go ahead and click Next, and it takes me to the Engagement Lockdown Complete wizard. It shows me what's going to happen as far as the tasks that will be performed prior to lockdown, and I can go ahead and finish this. Now, lockdown may take a moment to complete as it goes through and locks down all documents that have been marked for lockdown. In my file, I have displayed the lockdown column, as you can see right here, and I'm locking down all the documents in this file. Now, if there were a tax folder, I could have prevented the lockdown of that folder and the documents within it so the tax team could complete any outstanding tax work in the file without having to worry about it being locked down for tax purposes. That has been demonstrated in a previous CaseWare Zone session and can be found in the CaseWare Zone archives. Now, if we look down the left-hand side, the lockdown is now complete, and we can see the little padlock on all the documents that have been locked down on their icons. Keep in mind that I didn't have Gary delete his sync copy, so let's switch back to Gary's copy and see what happened there. Well, here we can see in Gary's copy, the lockdown properties have synchronized properly through. I also could have had Gary delete his synchronized copy before proceeding with the lockdown. Either way, the user is either online or there are no other outstanding sync copies outstanding for the lockdown to be able to proceed. As Gary, I'm going to go ahead and delete the synchronized copy here. To do so, I would select the SmartSync ribbon and choose Delete Copy. This is the only way users should be deleting sync copies. If you're going into Windows Explorer to delete them, there's always the potential to lose work. So I strongly recommend not doing that. Make sure you're in an online state, select the SmartSync ribbon, and choose Delete Copy. It will recognize if you're in an online state, and if you are, it will ask you if you're sure you want to delete the synchronized copy. If you're not in an online state, CaseWare Working Papers will attempt to put your file online, and if it can, it will proceed with the deletion. If it cannot, nothing will happen and your file will be left intact until such time as you can get back into an online state and then try SmartSync Delete Copy once again. I am in an online state, so I'm sure I want to delete Gary's synchronized copy. I'm going to go ahead and say yes here. And Gary no longer has that sync child copy outstanding. As a matter of fact, in my screen, I can't see any other users in the file. And just to verify, I can go to the Properties through the SmartSync menu, Online Properties, and we can see that mine is the only file outstanding other than the parent file in the cloud or behind a SmartSync server, whatever the case may be. So I'm going to leave that and just summarize what we've just learned. When locking down a file that is hosted either on a local SmartSync server installation or in the cloud, the person locking down the file must either, 1, be the only outstanding sync copy, or 2, all other outstanding sync copies must be in an online state, or 3, in a worst case scenario, abandon any offline synchronized copies prior to proceeding through the standard lockdown dialog. If at all possible, it is best practice not to abandon synchronized copies. Have the user get back online and properly delete their synchronized copy to ensure no work is lost. And that's how we would lock down a file in a sync state with the parent file behind either a SmartSync server or in the CaseWare Cloud.